The Las Vegas Raiders just made a sneaky good waiver wire claim, and I'm going to tell you about them, and I'm going to tell you why the nation should be excited. Also coming up here on today's show, the Raiders, at the time that I am recording this video, have signed 6 players to their practice squad, and I do anticipate that you're going to see a few other players that end up getting added. And at that moment, now the Raiders have just added a 7th at this moment that I'm speaking. At the very, very end of today's show, I am also going to talk about how I think that the NFL, screwed over the Raiders a little bit. Maybe you've seen this story on social media already, but at the end of the day, you guys already know. And if the NFL's got a shot to screw over the silver and black, they try to do it. Now, I'm an honest man here, but I'm also somebody that's very proud of what I put up forth and what we do here on the Raiders Report. Nobody's going to keep you more up to date than the Raiders Report, and nobody's going to entertain you the way that Jeremy Jugs and I do. Inform, entertain, that's what we do better than anybody on the planet. So if you bleed silver and black and you're not subscribed to this channel, do you actually bleed silver and black? So the move that the Raiders made this morning was the Raiders went out and they claimed Brennan Jackson. He's 6'4", 263 pounds. He was listed as a linebacker. I'm going to be honest, though, he is going to be an edge for this Raiders team. Now, maybe he offers you a little bit of that versatility overall, but he's going to predominantly be a defensive end edge rusher for the silver and black. With this move now, we have 54 players on our current roster. You're only allowed to have 53. I expect the silver and black to put Aidan O'Connell on short-term IR today, thus freeing up that roster spot. And I would anticipate that we're going to get that information a little bit later on today, maybe somewhere around 4 p.m. Eastern time. But for you guys out there, I know I probably wasn't the only person wondering what exactly is a guy like Jackson going to be able to bring to the table here. He was cut by the Rams. He was a 5th-round pick in 2024 and a 2-time second-team All-Pac-12 player in 2022 and in 2023. Now, some of you are probably clicking on this video and going, well, Mitch, why is it a sneaky good move? Don't worry. I'm going to tell you why it's a sneaky good move. As it stands right now, though, you add a little bit of extra pieces to your defensive end room, and this is something that the Raiders needed to be able to do. You got Crosby, you got Kuntz. You want to be able to use Tyree a little bit more there on the interior, and we'll talk about Charles Snowden here in just a second. But here's going to be your opportunity. Go down in the comments section and let me know. What is your one-word reaction to the Raiders going out, making this waiver wire claim? My answer is going to be coming up here in just a moment. Yeah, I put it on the thumbnail. I put it in the title. The word that I'm going to go with is sneaky. And because I am saying that, I do really, really believe that the Raiders here have made a sneaky good move. Also, I am now seeing that the Raiders have 8 players on their practice squad, and we'll talk about them in just a moment. In terms of why this is a sneaky move, he's a high-effort player. And I know that he's a high-effort player. And when I hear high-effort player, and I think that mindset in a defensive end room with Max Crosby, in a room with Rob Leonard, on a defense with Patrick Graham, you add all of that up into an equation, and that math makes sense in my mind. I might not be able to do real math. I'll be very transparent. If you're watching this show for math advice, you're in the wrong area. But because he's a high-effort player and all of those other things, you put him next to Max Crosby with Rob Leonard, you're going to get the most out of him. And I went back and I looked because I said, all right, let me learn a little bit more about him. And one of the things that I saw that Lance Zierlein said, somebody who I personally think is one of the better guys in the business for evaluating draft content, he said this: 6-year senior who plays like he loves football and never wants the game to end. Jackson is a productive effort-based pass rusher who wins with motor and force, but is missing much-needed moves and counters to beat NFL tackles with skill. This was his write-up, I should mention, before he was drafted by the Rams. He plays with good bend and powerful hips to drive his way through blocker, edge rush, run, or pass blocks. Jackson is salty at the point of attack and will shed or spin off blocks to find his way to the football. Despite some limitations, Jackson is constantly near the football thanks to his strength effort, and toughness. And he could become a reliable pro as a 4-3 and or a 3-4 rush linebacker. So for the Raiders, you know that they're going to use him the way that they want to use him in terms of being more of an edge, more of being that outside linebacker role, which, you've seen names like a Bruce Irvin being thrown out there before with somebody along the lines of Pete Carroll. But somebody that I've mentioned 100 to 200 times this offseason is K'Lavon Chaisson. And I do wonder if this is going to be one of those low-key moves that you go, oh, that could potentially be the Raiders' K'Lavon Chaisson move. Let's go to the next reason here of why I think that this is a good move overall. I think it's a good move overall because I know Rams fans are sad about it. And I know it because we had got a Rams guy here at Chat Sports, and he was talking about how he had a solid preseason. And I'll show you the preseason stats here in just a second. But our Rams fan here, his name is Jackson Durham, and he sent me a message, and this is what he said. Brennan Jackson is a Caps dog. Very bummed to lose him, but had multiple sacks in preseason. Fantastic career at Wazoo, too, with 20 career sacks. Really sad the Rams couldn't bring him back. And I think he's saying that because when you look at it in 110 snaps this preseason, 5 total tackles, 3 sacks, 39 sack yards. So in those 3 sacks, you can do the average. That's 13 yards lost per sack. And the PFF grades, I'll admit, they're not fantastic, but I'm also not going to be somebody that's only concentrating on PFF stats. To me, you bring in a guy like Brennan Jackson to do one job, and kind of one job only. Get after the quarterback. And a lot of those notes that Lance Zierlein said, good bend, high energy, high motor, that sounds like a Max Crosby. And I'm not saying Brennan Jackson's going to be it, but you want to get the most out of a player. And if you want to get the most out of an edge rusher, you put him with Rob Leonard, and you put him with somebody that's going to challenge that high effort. Number 98 is going to make him bring it. Let's go to the next reason here why I think it's a sneaky good move by the Raiders. Is this a potential Charles Snowden replacement? In the video that I put out on social media at Mitchell Renz 365, I talked about that there is a potential for Snowden to have that 3-game suspension due to that DUI. Well, are the Raiders already prepping for this to happen? Because you go out and you add an edge. You go out and you add your outside linebacker. You go out and add a defensive end. The role that Jackson is going to be playing here for the Raiders is the role that Charles Snowden plays. But Snowden is more of a run stopper in terms of his ability as a defensive end outside linebacker, where Jackson is going to be better at getting after the quarterback. Let's go to the final reason here. Again, I'm kind of saying it over and over. He has more edge help. And this team needs more edge help. Because if Snowden is, God forbid, suspended, that leaves us with Max Crosby, Malcolm Kuntz, Tyree Wilson, and now Jackson. But I know that I've said it 100 times. I know Chugs is the one that basically got the hashtag rolling Tyree to DT popping on social media. We believe Tyree Wilson is at best at defensive tackle. If you agree with that statement, I hope you like this video because, quite frankly, I don't know how you don't think that he's better at DT. But if we don't have, if Tyree's playing on the interior and if Max and Malcolm are your only options, to me, Brennan Jackson allows you to make your defensive line better by simply saying, all right, Tyree, instead of playing, maybe a little bit more mix at defensive end and DT, this, again, just allows Wilson to get a few extra reps at DT. And at the end of the day, I want him to take 75% of his reps at defensive tackle because he's just clearly so much better at it. So to me, those are all the reasons there of why I think the Raiders going out and claiming Brennan is a low-key, sneaky good move for the Las Vegas Raiders. So coming up next here on the show, the Raiders practice squad signing so far. I have 8 names. I started the show at 6, and already in the meantime, we are at 8 names in total. I'll tell you who those 8 signings are in just a moment, but I got to give a shout-out to our sponsor, Prize Picks. Football is so flippin' back. My wife, she's going to be in Paris all weekend. It's that old meme. She's probably going to be thinking I'm doing God knows what. I'm just going to watch a ridiculous amount of football. And if you guys are going to be watching a lot of football this weekend, then get your lineups going with Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That is code CLNS You get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game, and if you're trying to run your game, Prize Picks, I think, personally, is the best place to win cash while watching sports. Join millions of users and sign up today. If you want to go with the lineup that I'm rolling with, Dak Prescott, that's a gimme. Brock Bowers, Geno Smith, Jacoby Myers, give me the more there. Jack Besh, give me the less on receiving yards, and the addition of Amari Cooper. I am not worried about this lineup. I am still confident that I'm going to be able to turn 20 into $320. And the cool part is this. Prize Picks is also the best way to get action on sports in more than 40 states, including California, Texas, Florida, and Georgia. Prize Picks is simple to play. You just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you could cash in and win up to 2,000 times your money. I love Prize Picks. Chugs loves Prize Picks. And if you want to get started, that link's down in the comments, down in the description of today's show. All right, so now let's get into the Raiders practice squad signings that they have so far. One thing to note, none of the Raiders players were claimed off waivers, so anybody that we did not sign to the initial 53-man, we could bring those players into this practice squad, which is very important. And because of Laki Tasi, we're allowed to carry 17 players on the Raiders practice squad. The first name that I'm going to bring up here, it's because it was the first name of the person I reached out to this morning, Tommy Mellott. He is going to end up coming back here, 6th-round pick by the Raiders. And, he's just kind of struggled, I think, figuring out the NFL rule. He played quarterback at FCS. Now he's trying to learn wide receiver at an NFL level. It's going to take him a little bit of time. He's just got to get a little bit more confident. He's got the athletic ability, but you can tell he's just never played the wide receiver position before. Let's go to another name here, Shedrick Jackson. Really excited about him. He led the Raiders in receiving yards, receptions as well this preseason. Good athlete overall from Auburn. Carter Runyon, the UDFA from Townsend. He showed you some good spurts from time to time, and I think that he's going to end up being a good developmental piece. Cam Miller, quarterback, another 6th-rounder from FCS. And, if you watch that FCS championship game between North Dakota State and Montana State, you might not have been happy about what the Raiders did, but the Raiders are planning also for the long haul, and I think that they were confident that nobody was going to claim Mellott or Cam Miller, and that turned out to be the truth. Laki Tasi, the Raiders International Pathway Program player, is the next name that I'm going to bring up here, and there's never been an International Pathway Program player claimed. I was a little bit nervous because, no disrespect to David Ago, I hope that you're doing well, man, whatever you're doing right now, but Tasi was a higher-level International Pathway Program player than somebody along the lines of a David Agoa. In terms of the ones that have kind of just rolled in, Alex Bachman, he just signed with the Raiders practice squad, and this is kind of a move that I anticipated. He was really close to my Raiders, roster bubble. Didn't know if he was going to end up making it. With the addition of Amari Cooper, this then assured me that they were going to not keep Alex Bachman on the 53-man. Another move that the Raiders made on the practice squad. Dalton Wagner, he was there last offseason. If it was up to me, I'm not saying that he deserved to make the 53-man, but what he deserved to do is he at least deserved to be somebody that ended up making this squad. And the final name that I ended up seeing for the Raiders practice squad, former Texans wide receiver, Wake Forest. Oh, no, excuse me. That's all the names. I'm an idiot. I thought I saw one of the names come in, and I'm like, I thought it was a Texans wide receiver. It's still Alex Bachman. He's the one that ended up signing. So it's 7 names. I was trying to tell Chugs behind the scenes, hey, I think that we did XYZ. Chugs is looking at me like I'm a madman. At this current moment, only 7 Raiders practice squad players have signed. That's on me. That's on me. Again, when you see some of the news roll in while you're filming, you're like, do I cut the video short now? No, we're going to keep it rolling. 7 practice squad players have signed as it stands right now. So next thing coming up here again is going to be how I think the NFL screwed over the Raiders a little bit. And I'm not saying they did it purposely, but this type of shit just always seems to happen. And I don't know if it was last week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago, it's bleeding all together. But there was news out on Rashee Rice, and it was expected that he was going to get a 6-game suspension. The problem was that his court case was going to be on September 30th. And that September 30th court date, the 6-game suspension would have meant that he would have missed the Week 7 game up against the Raiders. Unfortunately, today, Rashee Rice has accepted his 6-game suspension, so they're not even going to draw it out to September 30th. He has already said, you know what, I'm going to accept this 6-game suspension, which means he's going to miss the first 6 weeks of the NFL regular season. And Schefter talked about it a little bit this morning, which you can see right here, and then it was confirmed by Tom Pelissero with him accepting it. It sucks because now he is eligible to return against the Las Vegas Raiders in Week 7. It's the ultimate eye roll emoji, and I am not even surprised, but it still sucks, and it does really stink because the Raiders would have had a better chance to beat the Chiefs if he wouldn't have been there. But you know what? If you want to be the best, you got to take on the best. And I still think that the Kansas City Chiefs are one of the best teams that are out there in the NFL, and I don't think that that's a crazy statement to make whatsoever. So, before I get on out of here, though, I did say yesterday, wanted to give a shout out to all my real ones that tuned in, and a lot of people commented real one. And I can't tell you how happy I am that y'all did that. So Raider Tone, Joe, Harvey, Sincere, and Max Gray, I see you. And if you made it this far in the video and you want another real one shout out, hey man, spam it down below. Before I get out of here though, I am going to be dropping a video tomorrow morning on the Raiders Report in regards to Jakobi Meyers. If you want to know something around Jakobi, you need to make sure you're subscribed. You need to make sure your notifications are on because the video I drop tomorrow morning is a video, I promise you this, you're not going to want to miss.